So those of you in my age group who are a little older and follow me here and know what I was doing back in the 80s and 90s. I was fighting the Satanic Panic. I was a young police officer who was the first to come public about his pagan beliefs and spent the next decades defending my community and many others and becoming ultimately recognized by the RCMP as a hate crimes expert. And those of you who are younger may have heard of the Satanic Panic, but now you're experiencing something like it, people using the same tactics, and you're probably wondering, well, how on earth did you deal with this? So let me give you a couple of pieces of advice on this. First of all, we're talking about an urban legend. And what that is a bunch of people tell a lie over and over and over and get as many other people telling it as possible. Because what they're trying to do is say this must be happening because, see, everyone's talking about it, which is a logical fallacy. Okay. And they're hoping that they're going to scare you into going undercover, going on, out of the public view. And then they can say, see, they're hiding. Must be true. Okay. So what I did for 25 years basically is stand in front of huge groups of church people and over and over again, law enforcement officers up to 1,400 at a time, corrections officers, whoever, and say, hey, I'm that person they're talking about. This is who I really am. This is how they're doing it to you. And at the end of the thing, every single time, two things happen. One is I got a huge crowd of people around me going, you're not what I expected. Gee, that's because people have been giving you misinformation. The other thing that happened every time I was in front of a law enforcement audience for 25 years is at least one person would come forward and say, okay, if you can do it, I can do it. I'm pagan too. Not necessarily Wiccan like me. I mean, I got my pentagram here. It could have been Druid, Cheyenne on one occasion, but something, some other minority group. And I mentioned this in the previous video. Every single time I ever spoke to the press, especially in my own jurisdiction, all kinds of people from other minorities came forward, from my police department, from the city hall, from whatever, and said, good for you, because they're doing it to me too. Sikhs, Jews, people from the E2S LGBTQ plus community, women, whatever. If you're not a white male, we're going to go after you, kind of a thing. So the point I'm trying to make here is you have more allies out there than you think you have. It's not just your circle of friends, your coven, your brove, your whatever. This isn't a time for my tradition's better than your tradition garbage. Okay. If it works for you, I'm happy for you. It's great. This is time for everybody to work together. But you must understand that back when I was doing this, fighting the Satanic Panic, some of the best police officers that I was working with taking this down were Christian. One was a Baptist deacon. One was a Pentecostal, for example. And why were they doing this? Because they were really pissed at what people were doing to their spiritual path, because this isn't what my path is about. Duh. One of the major organizations that took down a lot of this stuff was Cornerstone Magazine, which is a Christian media outlet who didn't like people telling lies. So don't just look within your community. Look at all the other minorities. They're all willing to stand for you because they're all taking it on the chin. They could be Mexican, they could be Chinese, it could be just there are all kinds of people out there that were willing to support what you're doing because they're on the receiving end of it too. So don't overlook that, and don't overlook people just because they happen to be wearing a crucifix, because a lot of them are concerned about it too. Just saying. The next thing is that you may not be able to stand up in front of people. Some people don't like to stand up in public and speak to huge groups of people. They don't like making cold calls. They're going, well, I can't do anything. Yes, you can. You know what was the major thing that made it possible for me and my colleagues to take people down? You are our eyes and ears. When you saw something, somebody doing something, you told us. I can't be everywhere on the continent seeing what everyone's doing, but you're there and you know where I am, so you can tell me and the people like me what's going on. And that's how I wrote those hundreds of articles for Witchvox for all those years to put the information out there so that people who were legitimate law enforcement officers and politicians and whatever had accurate information to work with. Because look at them, they're trying to ban books all over the place. They're trying to remove records. They're trying to rewrite history. That's what they have to do because they don't have any evidence. And that's why, number one, you have to take up space because they can't deal with that. They can't explain you away when you're there in plain view, not doing what they're saying you're doing. You screw up their evidence chain. Okay. So if you can do that, do that. I did. And if you can't, give information to those of us who can so we can put it out there. Go out there and be glorious.